Yeah, good. Yeah, I pinged my old buddy Ryan Leslie too, see if he's going to join as well. So we'll see if he can find time to catch up too. But Ryan's a big part of the story as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
big
Yep.
proponent of ours, and I mean, obviously he's a fixture in the forums.
Everyone loves Ryan.
They do, and we do. We miss him. We miss him at DealerRater. He was probably the best spokesperson we've ever had for DealerRater. Just, I mean, the passion that came through in his presentations and the way that he talked about it. He just believed so, strongly in the business and what we had set out to do, and just came through in everything that he did.
He and I did a few. We did a few. I don't know if it was Digital Dealer, or I think it was Driving Sales. He and I did a few conferences together. Maybe spoke together like 2 or 3 times, I believe. Always good times.
Good.
Yeah, you should definitely get all the nice things you're going to say about him out of the way while he's not here. And then when he shows up, you should really say what we think of Ryan Leslie.
I'm saving.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything negative.
I know.
just in case he joins, I've got a few. Yeah, and there's one thing that he used to say all the time in all his presentations. I'll bring up later, but it's something that has been beaten into my head, and it's so appropriate. And anyway, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, he's a good guy. But
well, I have a favorite question I'm going to ask you at some point throughout the hour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No preview? You're just going to spring it on me?
Yeah, maybe it'll be towards the end. I'm really curious.
All right.
Which I know could stem into a much more lengthy conversation if we allow it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you figure out the right timing for that. Cool. I know your history with DealerRater. I can't say DR because now we don't know if we're talking about.
We can't even use it for Dealer Refresh anymore, which ticks me off more so because I hate digital retailing as a term. I can't.
DealerRater digital retailing.
Dealer. I know. I know. And I will say.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right. Well, as you all were hearing coming into this, we've all been robbed. So we share a common theme here. So the DR acronym that we use for DealerRater, Dealer Refresh, even the doctors have all been robbed. It's all gone to digital retailing.
I think we can share it. And by the way, Chip and I take a little bit of credit since we're 19 years old and you're 16 years old for your naming the way, you take 2 perfectly good words and you mash them together into one to make one word. I don't know what they call that, the camel case or something with the hump in the middle with the capital letter. But we like to think that maybe we play a little bit of part in how you guys named Dealer Refresh. But our history goes back
possibly
a little bit further than yours. You guys can drive now that you're 16. We can at 19 we can drive and vote. So
yeah, we're having a sweet 16 party later.
Yeah, that's Cinco de Mayo too. What better timing in the year to have an anniversary?
Yeah,
ours is in November, which isn't it's not a party month.
It's an eat your face off month.
Yeah, true. There is celebration in the form of food and family, but this is fun for me to be on this side of the screen too. I'm a big fan of the show and what you guys do and the Deal Refresh community. So it's awesome to be here chatting with you guys. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, Jamie,
thanks for joining us.
We've been wanting to have a DealerRater show for years now.
Yeah, way too long.
we've talked about this so many times, and we knew we had to wait till you got to 10 million reviews before we could really do anything. So
I figured that was
you just delayed it too long.
We had to put the pedal to the metal to get here. So I'm glad we earned the spot. And yeah, no, it's a fun milestone, and we really appreciate the partnership we've had with the whole, the Dealer Refresh community over the year too. I think we really kind of came up in the business with Dealer Refresh on the forums, and the folks we'll get to in a bit who've been involved with the community. I think we're a better business, no doubt, because of you guys and what you've built, and the collection of automotive professionals that are a part of this, this community, that just provide a lot of value. Vendors, hold vendors accountable, have great conversations about the industry and where it's headed. And we've certainly benefited many times over from those forum discussions and conversations and opportunities like this. So really appreciate it.
Well, the great thing is you guys actually jump in and participate. You've got people from the team, especially back in the day, that would participate. To me, that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah. I think, the cast of characters have changed a little bit, but I think our philosophy still is the same, and that we're always trying to get better. We're on a mission to improve the automotive retail experience for buyers and sellers, for dealers and consumers. And so listening to both sides of the marketplace is really important for us, right? As a consumer facing site, where we need to provide that trust and transparency, but also as a vendor in the automotive space that helps dealers leverage our platform to tell their story and showcase their people and leverage social, and really create that bias for action to communicate with customers to get better. That's really important to us, and that's been part of our ethos since day one, since review number one. Yeah.
Anyway,
I remember
a funny story.
Go ahead, Jeff. No, I was going to say I was actually at this dealership when I read my very first DealerRater review and came across it, and I'm going through, I'm like, what is this shit? Because this was before any review sites, and of course it was a negative review. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's going on here? I was like, who owns this damn website? So scrolled down to the bottom of the page, found the contact us, and I just start dialing, and Chip answered. Mm-hmm. I think we had about a 2-hour phone conversation. He sold me on it right there and then. He goes, don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at the positive. Look at what you can do. This is what we're thinking. And yeah, it was, that was fun. Real fun.
Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of dealers got to know DealerRater back in the day. I think that hotline was literally to Chip's, cell phone.
His phone. Yeah. Straight to him.
Even his landline in his home. I mean, DealerRater was essentially built out of his home. I mean, I think back to review number one. This was back in 2002. I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico with my wife, and Chip is my brother-in-law. And so he came out to visit, and he had just had an experience at a local dealership. He was, he loves cars, huge auto enthusiast, was also a web developer, and went out to buy his first new car. It was a BMW, went to a local BMW dealership here, and had a really polarizing experience. He went to go pick up the car, had a particular options package that he had ordered. Something happened with the package. There was a new model year changeover, and that package was now standard, and there was a rebate due, and they didn't give it to Chip, and they kind of pocketed it. And he figured that out, and he was really upset about that and contacted them, and they ended up going above and beyond to make it right. And he was so polarized by that experience that that really sort of challenged this sort of perception that dealers were kind of out to get you, right? And I think that was the trigger for him that he needed to share that with other consumers, with other potential customers, not only in the Boston marketplace, but is this something that we can put out there nationwide? Because at that point, Google wasn't doing reviews. Yelp may have been an idea in someone's head, but it wasn't a thing yet. There was nowhere to go online to share this feedback. And so, Chip and I talked about, what can we do? And obviously as a web developer, his first instinct is, well, let me go buy a whole bunch of URLs and I'll make a blog. I mean, back in these days, it was literally just a blog where you just post stuff. You just, easy interface. And he bought a whole bunch of URLs, decided that DealerRater was the most appropriate one, and started to build on that platform. And it was kind of nights and weekends for him, and for me, I sort of jumped in to kind of help him kind of think through review collection and moderation and how to get content on the site. And for 5 or 6 years, it was kind of a slow drip of content. And I did the calculation. I shared this with the Cars team last week. Back when we kind of first got this launched, we had a new review about every 7 hours, and we were just like through the roof when we got a new review. It was awesome. Fast forward to today, where we get a new review every 7 seconds. So is
that what it is? Every 7 seconds.
The speed at which we collect content today. I mean, talk about a snowball rolling downhill. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And when you match up what we have with the Cars.com ecosystem and the opportunities there, which we'll get to in a little bit, it's pretty incredible. But along the way, a lot of Dealer Refresh alumni were part of DealerRater. Matt Lamoureux, Heather McKinnon, Ryan Leslie. Chip, and I give a lot of credit to Chip, who really did a lot of the legwork to pull this team together, which we owe a tremendous amount to really building the business in the early days. I really didn't lean in full time in the business until probably 2010, 2011. But I had been consulting with Chip along the way on business model and, how can we leverage, once we started getting this content, how do we leverage this content to help dealers get better? Because at the end of the day, I mean, back to sort of the philosophy around DealerRater, we wanted to help dealers get better. We knew that the industry was misunderstood and wanted to build a trusted forum where customers could share their experiences, good or bad, and just create a bias for action on the dealer's part to have a conversation with those customers. So it doesn't just sort of fly off into the ether. It's sort of a matter of record on a website where we gave dealers the ability to respond to that customer, or if they were a DealerRater certified dealer, they could sort of privately work towards resolving the issue. And so that was really sort of the impetus behind pushing on the dealer side of it. How can we build tools that allow dealers to better leverage the content on their own websites, on other platforms? How do we help them collect more content the right way? So Jeff's here. I know.
Thanks, Joe.
By the way, 19 years. I mean, you guys look the same as you did 16 years ago. I'm 19 years. I got gray hair and wrinkles. You guys somehow
Jeff might be the only one who's
filter
kept his baby face. But funny other thing, Jamie, that I think you all should take credit for, and this is me as a business person. I think that the way you all rolled out DealerRater initially was brilliant. The take over your competitor's page with your ad, was, and then protect your own turf. And how else are you going to get dealers to sign up for reviews that they back then really didn't care about,
Right.
than to go after their competitive front. And Jeff and I guess we'll make this public now. It's probably not going to hurt anything, but we made a pact. As he was working at Mile One, I was at Checkered Flag in the Hall Auto Group stores in Hampton Roads, and Checkered Flag in Virginia Beach. We were competitors, and the third leg in of the big competitors in the area was the Priority Auto Group. And so we made a pact that we wouldn't buy each other's DealerRater pages, but we would go to town and buy up all of Priorities together. So
good strategy. Yeah, I mean that was really, and I give credit to Matt and Heather for the strategy around getting DealerRater out across the U.S. and making it sort of a part of the culture of the dealership. And I think they were out there looking for market champions, those who were early adopters, just, very much as Matt was at Acton Toyota. How do you leverage search and the internet, which was, very much still up and coming when it comes to customer journey, business discovery, business research. How do you get dealers to really understand the power of that, and then leverage that to make sure that that other dealers create a little bit of FOMO, if you will, on the behalf of other dealers in the marketplace, to make sure that you're protecting this valuable real estate on DealerRater, which, again, credit to Chip, really understood the power of SEO and was an SEO wizard in the early days, just making sure that we were marking up the page as Google evolved, how they gave instructions for page markups and all that stuff. Chip followed it as any good student of SEO would, and really made sure that DealerRater was part of that conversation, which fast forward 19 years today is one of the competitive advantages we have, and I think is important for us as we think about our mission as a business to really help local dealerships tell their story, which really at the end of the day is what we are. We are the voice of the customer for automotive, and we want to help local businesses tell their story. And so I think, again, credit to Chip for the SEO machine that he built back in the early days that made sure that we were out there on SERP 1, and when the dealership's name was Googled, the DealerRater was a part of that conversation. And so I think, again, fast forward to today, and we're still there. And I think we're well,
that's how I initially stumbled across it, was, just typing in our dealership's name and saying, what's this DealerRater stuff? And, and then, to this day, it's still probably, especially if you throw the term reviews in there, it's usually at the very top.
Right. Yeah. And, and obviously there are other platforms there too. And I when I think of DealerRater reviews, I think of the DealerRater and Cars platform today. So when I think of the content on DealerRater that's also on Cars, our mission is to make our content ubiquitous. So it's not just about having your reviews on DealerRater, it's also making sure that it's visible across other important touch points. Obviously, cars.com, with the incredible marketplace and reach that they have, has been a really wonderful partnership for us in allowing us to take reviews and customer experience data and bring it to a platform where we can really turn the volume up to 11 and help to really impact, again, not just the customer experience, but also how do we help dealers get better and shine a light on process gaps and response times and pricing transparency and things like that, which we can talk about a little bit here today.
Yeah, let's dive into some of that, Jamie. There's with 10 million reviews, and plus, like you said, the Cars network connecting up with Dealer Inspire and everything on cars.com. Just there has to be some incredible insights that you guys have gleaned with that amount of data.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that really jumps out at you as a real astonishing stat or piece of information?
Well, I think, a couple things. And I think the first thing to talk about, to mention in the context of what we've seen over the past year, because we've definitely come across some interesting insights that I'll share in a minute. But I think the first part is to talk a little bit about what's different today in the way that consumers are using reviews to research dealerships compared to pre-pandemic, because there's definitely been a shift. I think the first of three questions, or the first of three sort of elements that customers are looking for is, one is, can this dealership deliver on the sort of the new digital experience, or sort of COVID selling experience that I expect, right? So home delivery, virtual appointments, virtual walkarounds, online video chat. Are they delivering on those types of services that I'm looking for today in order to transact safely? The second thing is this a dealership that is transacting safely? Do they have the right COVID protocols in place? And luckily, as we're getting out of the woods there, that becomes less important of a factor these days. But it's still important to customers across the country. And the last piece is, will I get a better experience from buying locally as opposed to using a national home delivery chain? And again, this goes back to sort of the work that local dealers are doing and those vendors that support them to counter this anti-dealer narrative that's in the marketplace, the sort of room narrative that again is this sort of a fragment of this old tired narrative that is sort of back to the reason why we started the business in the first place, which is that the industry is misunderstood. But local business, is key. Local business rules, and consumers are really consulting reviews more now than ever to validate the fact that local businesses will give them a superior experience and help them to develop a relationship with a business that they can go back to for service, buy another car that they can recommend friends and family to. And so
what's the footprint of the consumer finding the reviews? Are they actually are they actively seeking out dealership reviews for that particular dealership? Are they stumbling across them? Is it the reviews that are housed on the marketplace websites? What do you guys see within the analytics? How are most consumers utilizing the dealer reviews?
So it's across all the touch points that you mentioned, Jeff. It's search, so they're Googling the dealership's name, and they're looking at the Google reviews, they're looking at the DealerRater reviews, cars.com, whoever else indexes on cert one, maybe Facebook, maybe Yelp, looking at the knowledge graph. They're coming to DealerRater, they're clicking on, they're shopping on cars. The journey is not a linear one. It doesn't start here and end here. It moves all over the place. Invariably, the customer will end up on the dealership's website, where reviews, depending on what your philosophy is and what technology your website provider provides to you. Reviews should be a really prominent part of that website experience. And, we've been really intentional with on that front with how we've sort of plugged into the Dealer Inspire website platform and their technology. And DealerRater now powers reviews and reputation on DI websites. So, that plumbing and the data is plugged directly into us, so dealers get clean data. And it's not just DealerRater; it's also Google, Facebook, Cars.com, of course. But the journey is not, again, as mentioned, it's not necessarily
non-linear.
But search is a really key component. And we tell dealers, Google your dealership's name and see what sites and platforms and marketplaces show up, and focus on those, right? If you're focused on reputation, and you really should be these days, it's not an option anymore. Make sure you're focused on the sites that are an active part of the customer shopping journey, which is why the integration with Cars.com is so powerful for us, because back to the early days of DealerRater, we knew that there would be a certain amount of traffic that would come to DealerRater, low funnel shoppers that have done research on product and price, and now they're coming to DealerRater to research the place, right? What's the right place for me? And then we call it the 4 P's of automotive marketing: product, price, place, and person. And the person piece, which we'll talk about at some point here too, which is also a really sort of key differentiator for us. It gets into not only what's the right dealership for me, but who should I ask for when I walk in, or who do I want to submit to directly that I know will provide a great experience to me, or for me. But with the
are consumers using that feature a lot?
Yeah, I mean, we have close to 200,000 active employee profiles on DealerRater right now.
Okay.
And those dealership, the mutual DealerRater Cars customers, those employee profiles syndicate over to Cars.com. And the engagement that we're seeing with, definitely, Alex. The engagement that we're seeing with that content is through the roof. When a lead is submitted on a Cars.com or DI VDP, we've also built that integration. Huge shout out to Ryan, by the way. I'm seeing this stuff come up on the screen. Ryan is DealerRater OG, always going to be part of the family. So when that salesperson is selected on the VDP, and this is a feature that we call Salesperson Connect, whether it's Cars.com or DealerRater or the Dealer Inspire website, that lead closes 2.5 times more often than those that are submitted without a salesperson selected. So it's the reduction of just yet another barrier to entry when it comes to getting a deal done. If you can give consumers the ability to do that research up front, see the smiling face of someone that they're getting to know through a little bit about them, reading their reviews, experience in the industry, the engagement and conversion on leads submitted with a salesperson selected is just eye-popping. And so, we always encourage dealers to make sure that they're, enabling their staff to use these tools, to be asking for reviews, to be rated, individually, which is something, again, that differentiates DealerRater from other review platforms, is we give the employees the ability to have their customer service rated, which helps. Jeff, I know you've got your team active on DealerRater using Lotshot, and they're, you've got certified employees, and they're getting leads directly through their employee profile pages on DealerRater. So you've got the ecosystem working, and I think you see how it creates a culture of accountability and customer service. Because once you can plug in the reward of getting a lead from a customer that's already kind of gotten comfortable with you, and now they just want to walk in and get the deal done, as opposed to someone walking in cold and hoping that the person that they get a chance to deal with is the right fit for them. We hear stories every week from employees at dealerships who have had the experience of someone walking in and literally asking for them cold, who happen to read their reviews on DealerRater.
It still happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I think it just takes one time for it to happen to an employee to really understand the power of putting yourself out there, to put your personal brand out there for other potential customers to see how do you treat customers, and then they'll get selected. And we've got a leaderboard, and so we've got an app, so you can see how you're doing in terms of review volume and individual ratings. But it's a really powerful ecosystem. Yeah, your team is using LotShot too, which is great. So you're taking the photos, and those are posting live with the reviews, which really adds just a much more personal element to the content, right? Which is really important, again, which is why we have just focused on automotive since day one, is because we feel as though we're experts in the industry, and we have the obligation to help dealers tell their story. And it's not always going to be, roses. There's going to be some negative content there, but telling that story is important, whether it's through photos, smiling faces of employees that get tagged in reviews, and
I made sure once this the pandemic and all that good stuff hit, I made sure that our salespeople were getting photos of the customers with their masks on, just to so if anyone was reading the reviews and seeing the photos, they would, just help reinforce, that we were taking all the precautions here at the dealership. Earlier, you had mentioned something around phrases, I guess different phrases that consumers are searching. Is there any insights around that? And should dealers, is there a way to maybe actively solicit for reviews based on those type of, based on the type of services?
Yeah, so good. So thanks. Because I did want to get back to some of the insights that we gleaned from the reviews that we got during the pandemic, which by the way, on balance, the review content that we generated through the pandemic was some of the most sort of enduringly positive marketing collateral that any dealer could have collected at any time over the past 10 years. I mean, the stories of perseverance and success and durability really shone through, in spades during the pandemic. And I was also proud of the fact that we continued to collect reviews through the pandemic too. I know Google had kind of a hiatus when it came to new review collection and responses. And
why was that?
Why was that?
Yeah, it's about a 6-week period between, I think, late March and the end of April. Something like that. We started hearing from dealers, I think, in late March. I don't know the real reason why. There's been speculation around staffing or fraud prevention. Google has a different type of sort of staffing and philosophy around fraud prevention. A lot of it's automated, whereas DealerRater, we have a mix of automation and human. We read every single review that gets posted on the site. So we were confident in our ability to make sure that we could successfully filter out any fraudulent reviews that came through that were pandemic related. But when we kind of look back on balance at the sort of the vast quantity of reviews that we collected during the sort of peak of the pandemic, it was overwhelmingly positive, and ironically, even more positive than the average mix that we see. And I think that in and of itself is a testament to how dealers just figured it out quickly and got it right. And that was really encouraging for us to see at Cars. And so that combined with keywords, we did a lot of
what were some of the keywords that you guys were tracking?
Yeah, so home delivery was a big one. Online sales, online appointments, COVID-19, right? A lot of sort of COVID specific keywords and stuff like that. Safety was a big one.
Jamie, those keywords that were COVID related, was that more prevalent in certain parts of the country than others?
Had to have been.
Yeah, we did see there was definitely a geographic disparity between those, and not only that, but obviously the various peaks in the pandemic also corresponded with peaks in the frequency of those keywords being mentioned in the reviews. Mm-hmm. So, it was, if you sort of looked at the geographic spike from the data provided by the CDC around sort of pandemic peaks and, geographic distribution, it matched up fairly well with what we were seeing in our data come through on the DealerRater side. So not a big surprise, but it was just interesting to see how reviews, again, as a proof point for the reality across the country, what was going on. That was definitely interesting to watch. But the rise in keywords, I mean, the sort of call it the no touch retailing keywords, again, sort of, home delivery, safe delivery, home test drive, all those types of keywords that they were up over 1,000% for the sort of the key pandemic period. So that, I mean, those keywords are combined with the data that we found on sentiment mix was a clear signal that not only were dealers figuring out how to transact safely and broadcast it to their customers, but also doing a really good job of it. And along the way, figuring out really quickly how to pivot to digital retailing solutions that that became a must-have during the pandemic and really accelerated the industry shift, as you guys know, accelerated that shift towards broader adoption of those tools, which obviously I'm proud that DealerRater Cars and DI were there to play a really kind of key role in making sure that we had the solutions and moved quickly on innovations to be there for the dealers to help them get through it. But feels like
were there any dealerships that you ran across that maybe had some best practices in order to go after and solicit for those different keyword phrases? Did it make sense to do that, or just let it go organically?
Well, does it make sense anymore? Because the things have seemingly they're turning around.
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate between, because I think there's kind of two different categories there. One is the COVID safety protocols, which is really important and has been, and I'd say we're not quite out of the woods yet. So I think it's still important for dealers to continue to make sure that they're encouraging customers to share reviews of their experience and invariably, just because it's a different type of shopping experience for people these days. We've never gone through anything like this. So it's a memorable component of your shopping experience, and dealers are, and consumers are also very appreciative of the protocols that dealers put in place. And some dealers get called out for not having the right protocols in place or not following them within the dealership and being inconsistent with how it rolls out. So while we see keywords there sort of slowly start to decrease, I think we'll continue to see a ramp in digital retailing. I think there are a lot of sort of durable trends that emerged through the pandemic that aren't really going to be going anywhere, right? They're here. The home delivery, vehicle pickups, home test drives. I think it's shifted the way that consumers want to shop. They're looking for that convenience that they may not have looked for before. So dealers, I think, will find that organically, a lot of those keywords will be woven into the reviews that get left. But something else really quickly that I'll hit on that's important, that I think where DealerRater and cars can play a really important role here, is our ability to get smarter at how we ask shoppers to share their experience specifically with those types of transactions, right? Because our traditional write a review form is sort of I wouldn't say generic, but it is rate the experience at the dealership, share your experience in your words, and then we have some subcategories around customer service and friendliness and quality of work and things like that. We're going to be shifting that a bit to help dealers collect more actionable feedback on things like home delivery and price transparency and response times and things like that are helpful in today's sort of new no-touch retail experience. How can we help dealers get better at that? And I think you'll also see, as Cars rolls out the brand new Cars.com, very soon, the algorithm that preferences inventory placement on the SRP will become even smarter at making sure that reviews, recency scores, but also lead response scoring, and how are dealers doing with some of these services that are really important to customers today, that are services that are provided on these platforms. How are dealers doing with those? And the dealers that aren't doing well will get the feedback, and those that will be rewarded. So I think we'll see that become a bit more of a theme as we progress through 2021, is that we can help dealers collect that feedback if they're not sort of actively talking about it and asking for it today.
There were some good comments from Jake at your group, and he was talking about how you can transition some of the phrasing you're talking about from contact lists and things of that nature to start to look at ways to take those practices and acquire more trades out of the customer's driveway, make it very convenient, and then solve some of the issue of picking up, obviously, more cars that are hard to get at the auction right now.
Yeah. I mean, the applications, the practical applications of reviews and the data that we can collect, and the intelligence that we can glean from that can help dealerships in so many different ways. And I think we're trying to get smarter about different ways that we can leverage that to help solve real pain points that dealers have today, and to be able to move quickly, to do that, which is always sort of what we've kind of prided ourselves on being able to do, because again, we're auto specific. We're not also trying to cater to restaurants and salons and hotels.
Well, speaking of pain points, throughout the 19 years, have you been able to track, like, what is the absolute best way for dealerships to combat any type of negative reviews? Does something stick out? Have you brought all the data together and go, okay, when a dealership has a negative review and they comment this way, this happens, or if they comment this way, this is what happens?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and something that we talk about often at DealerRater, and it's been a common theme, as you can imagine, since the very beginning, because dealers have gotten negative reviews on DealerRater since the very beginning. I think the first step is the dealers need to be reading the negative reviews. I think we still talk to dealers who ignore the negative feedback or put it in a separate bucket and say, I'm going to get to it later. But those dealers that are doing it right do a few things, right? First, they're reading the negative reviews, and it's not just sort of a cursory read. They're actually trying to understand who it is, what happened, and then they're trying to figure out how to fix the processes in the dealership to make it better. Was there a particular person that they did business with that needs to be retrained? Was there a misunderstanding? But the most important thing is just to respond, and I think there's no surprise there, right? I think we still see far too few dealers responding to reviews. Last year, we only had 44% of dealers respond
to negative reviews.
To all reviews. Negative reviews was probably a bit higher. I'd say probably closer to 50% or so, but it's still not nearly enough. And I think there's so much power in a great, well-crafted, thoughtful response to a negative review that dealers, I think, just take for granted, because customers are not only reading reviews, but the vast majority of those customers are also reading the responses to the reviews. And 3/4 of customers, won't do business with a dealership that's not actively responding to negative reviews, because they don't trust the ability of the dealership to either acknowledge or fix issues. And so if I go and I have a bad experience, what about me? What's going to happen to me? And so I think just the act of responding, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just acknowledging that there is an issue, apologizing, and then acting, right? We call it the 3 A's of responding: acknowledge, apologize, and act, right? They use it in the restaurant industry. I mean, it's an easy thing to remember, but sometimes hard for dealers to practice, especially when it's busy, right? I mean, the dealership life is a busy one.
What's the percentage of dealerships that you have on board that are constantly, or I should say consistently, commenting back to positive reviews? And have you been able to see anything over the 19 years, dealerships that respond back to almost or every positive review as well? Is there any type of end result to that?
It's funny. We decided to do a little bit of a study, a deep dive into the shared habits of the Dealer of the Year award winners this past year.
Well, that was my next question, because you guys do the Dealer of the Year. You got the Dealer Satisfaction Dealer of the Year for reviews. So that was my next question was, is there any type of shared best practices? So maybe that's the answer, is being able to respond to positive reviews as well.
Jeff needs some help there. He hasn't won that in a few years.
Yeah, we always win the customer satisfaction. We haven't won the review Dealer of the Year for a couple of years now. I think it's just because I really try to spread the love with the reviews. I think a lot of it just come down to count. And we've got a lot of Benz dealerships in the DC metro area that we compete with.
When we took a deeper dive into the shared habits of the Dealer of the Year award winners, probably the most overwhelmingly positive shared habit that the vast majority of Dealer of the Year award winners were doing, where they were responding to all reviews, both positive and negative. It's just a sign of engagement with your customers. And I use the analogy of, you've just had a great meal at a restaurant, really excited about it, brand new spot, and you're walking out the door and you see the owner and you see, you say, thank you. It was a great meal. And the owner kind of stares at you blankly and watches you walk out without, responding. To me, that's the same as someone who has taken the time to write a great review about an experience. They're really, fired up. They love their new car. They wrote a review. And then it's just, kind of crickets. And not every single customer is expecting to hear back, but most are. And I think it helps to create a dialogue, and it's easy to do. And again, a lot of dealers don't have time to do it. And that's why we launched Auto Response, which is a managed review response service. Dealers had been asking us for years to do something like this. And we've had it now live for about 6 months or so. But you should be responding to every review as soon as it comes through. And I think if you wait 2 weeks and then respond, I think the magic is lost a little bit there. But that was a key theme that we found with the Dealer of the Year award winners, was that the vast majority, I think it was 80% of them had actively responded to all of their reviews. And I think that was a really important eye-opening stat for us. We also found that, the vast majority of the Dealer of the Year award winners have also really engaged their staff in the review solicitation process, right? You don't necessarily have to have employee profiles or be a DealerRater customer to win, but when you engage your team in asking for reviews, the flywheel spins faster. And I think that generates a lot of value for the dealerships, and also kind of helps you get there faster. So sort of making review collection a team sport was another key insight that we found. The last thing was what we just talked about, negative review responses, right? These Dealer of the Year award winners sort of consider negative reviews to be a gift that they can, leverage to make their processes better. And you can't get too many negative reviews if you want to be Dealer of the Year, but those that do really make it a part of their process to intentionally address what went wrong so it doesn't happen again. So it confirmed what we had suspected was the case, but it was still, it's always interesting to look at the data and pull it out and be able to put some good percentages to it.
I know in the past I would try to get, we would push most of our reviews to DealerRater. And then with time you realize, I need to get, a percentage of reviews here, and here. I would probably venture to say Google's probably one of the more top places that you guys compete with for reviews. Any pros or cons around some of the, not that you need to call them out, but is there any pros or cons around the other review sites out there? Is, a dealership that goes, I'm just going to throw all my reviews towards Google because, they come up in the pack, they come up in the Google My Business section. What would you say to a dealership that says, hey, I'm only going to focus on Google?
Well, I would challenge that dealer to look at the last 2 weeks of their Google reviews and ask themselves, do these reviews tell my story in the local market, right? Are these reviews an accurate reflection of how I do business? Are they telling a story that other consumers can use, that I can leverage to bring that next prospective customer in through the door? And look, we're partners with Google. I'm certainly not going to stand here and say, don't pay attention to Google, because you have to, right? Google is Google, and we always preach the value of a well-diversified portfolio when it comes to reviews. But I also think that review quality is really important. And again, back to what I was saying earlier about DealerRater sort of, and cars together as a platform being the definitive voice of the customer for the industry. that's so powerful for us just because we're very intentional with how we ask for the content, with what we ask for. And it was really eye-opening. And when we did a deeper dive into Google review content, and what we found was that Google reviews, said 44% of Google reviews have fewer than 10 words, and a third of Google reviews don't have any words at all. And if my buddy Ryan Leslie is still listening, I hope he is, because I've seen him post a few things. His words still resonate in my head, and I use it all the time. And I credit him. I should probably be paying him royalties, but 5 words and 5 stars do not sell or service cars. And that is, I firmly believe that. And I think that's why we challenge dealers who say, Google. We'd say, well, first, make sure that they're actually telling your story, because I'd be willing to bet that they're not, right? A typical Google review is, had a great experience at this dealership, right? It's 7 words.
Yeah, they don't tell us. We definitely have more of our customers that tell a true story. That typically happens on DealerRater and none of the other review sites.
Right. So, it's a little bit kind of like fast food. You're not going to eat every meal at McDonald's like that Super Size Me guy did, Morgan Spurlock. You see what happened to him. I think the value of a well-balanced diet, I kind of liken DealerRater and cars to sort of the reviews superfood group, right? Because we're specific to automotive. So we're asking, from the beginning, first of all, you've got to use at least 25 words. We get some complaints about that every once in a while, but fact of the matter is, right, the difference between us and Google on that is 1 sentence versus 2. Usually most reviewers can spare another few words to write a second sentence, but we found that once they get going, they write and they tell a story. So it's really meant to just kind of be that push downhill for a consumer to start to share their story, which then leads to a much more valuable review that's valuable for SEO, and it's valuable for data mining for insights that benefits the dealer. And you also get to know that customer a little bit better too. You can identify who it is, as opposed to someone who just said, bad experience here, don't go, right? They need to, it's helpful as a dealer to understand what happened. Tell me the story so I can try to figure out who you are and try to reach out to them. And so, that combined with employee tagging, right? You can share the person that you did business with and rate them, and add a photo, the lot shot that you guys use. All that helps to create a much higher quality review content, which we believe is so much more powerful and valuable. And again, DealerRater's there on Cert 1, so we're going to be part of that journey. And you can engage with our platform or not, but I think you'll find that the review content that customers leave on DealerRater are much better at telling your story, and ultimately better at driving traffic to your dealership.
Jamie, we're coming up on the hour.
Can I? I got one question here, and this is so I think about time and the time that the salesperson has to sell the person a car, get them through F&I and all that kind of stuff, and at the end, you're coming down to the delivery side, and at some point you're trying to solicit a review. Some dealers are now including insurance in their what they're selling to customers now. And think about all the things that compete for that kind of time. And there's also this thing called CSI that we're trying to prep the customer for and say, hey, give us a good survey with the manufacturer, give us a good survey on DealerRater, give us a good survey on Google. Oh, by the way, I got some Allstate I want to sell you too. So all these things, and that might be, Jeff, why your guys are more concentrated on that in some regard. But anyway, it occurred to me when I first met DealerRater that it would make a lot more sense if DealerRater or something like DealerRater was the CSI mechanism. I mean, you killed 2 birds with 1 stone. And how many times in 19 years have y'all had that conversation with OEMs?
Many, and we could have a whole nother hour on that topic, because I think there's a lot of value in rethinking that whole process, right? I think the value of sort of social proof that doesn't come through in CSI, it's an antiquated process that interrupts the ability for dealers to tell their story. And again, I've used that phrase a lot, but I believe really strongly in it. You're not telling your story in CSI. And, I get the practical reasons for why it exists. We've had some interesting tests over the years, and I don't think we're there yet, but I think DealerRater, as at our core, a data aggregator, there's a lot of potential there for what we do, and the core competencies that we've built up over the years, and our ability to leverage that in front of an incredibly broad and wide and valuable audience on cars.com and dealership websites. There's a lot of value there. So I think it requires more conversation, more education. But again, if we can simplify that process, again, it's about efficiency at the dealers to minimize vendors, minimize processes, minimize confusion, make sure there's a clean and clear, direct path to tell your story. Because CSI is a blocker to that. Some people just do CSI or SSI and then they're done, and they get another thing from DealerRater or someone else to leave their review, and they kind of feel like they've already done it. So we do have some interesting experience and data there. So I'd say stay tuned. I think there's a great opportunity there just to provide more efficiency, but also, again, customers' time is valuable, and leaving a review is not an insignificant thing. It's not a chore, but we're always trying to make it easier. But if we can just get customers to share their experience once, and then maximize the value of that across all platforms, and then back into the dealership to make sure that they can celebrate the wins and fix the problems, is the ultimate goal for us. So.
Well, I know the industry sure would appreciate that. So that's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah,
so if there was, and maybe you just answered my last question, and that was, is there anything new that we should be expecting out of DealerRater here in the near future?
Yeah. So, the one thing that I wanted to mention quickly was an update to the dealer rating algorithm that we're introducing. It's not going to, it won't impact the majority of the dealers on the site, but we're trying to get better at how we display the average rating, make sure we have the utmost confidence in the rating that we display, and also sort of, continue to evolve with the industry, with how consumers are reading reviews and recency and all that stuff. So two important changes that we're going to make that will roll out on June 1st. The first is that we're going to be requiring a minimum of 5 reviews in the past 24 months to have an average rating display for that dealership. So, for example, a dealership that has one-star review from 18 months ago will just have an NA on DealerRater. They're not going to have a 1-star on DealerRater. And again, this is something, again, back to leveraging the dealer refresh community to make us better. So this was a great conversation that we had last summer. So making sure that there's enough recent reviews that we have confidence that this is a dealership, that we have enough feedback from customers recently that we can, with confidence, show an actual score. The second piece is that we're going to take into account, when we calculate the average score, the lifetime reviews, but weight the reviews received in the past 2 years the most heavily, right? Because we think the best predictor of the experience if someone's walking into the dealership tomorrow is the someone who shared their experience last week, right? Rather than an experience from 4 or 5 years ago, because average turnover at the dealership for a salesperson is about 2 years or so these days. So making sure that we're fair and consistent with how we weight the reviews, but again, make sure that we're taking all the reviews into consideration, but putting a little bit more weight on the more recent reviews. We think that's fair. I think a good evolution for our average rating calculator. We really haven't changed much in the past 19 years, right? So
it's a good formula.
I like it.
It's something that we're going to roll out first on DealerRater, and then once we get sort of post-launch for the new cars, we'll be introducing it on cars and auto.com probably late summer, early fall. So
cool.
Excited
we look forward to seeing that, Jamie.
Yeah, that'll be.
And we also look forward to review number 1 billion.
we are well on our way. We've blown past 10 million. We're on to the next 10. But if anyone wants to learn more about DR and what we're doing, go to dealerrater.com/dealers. They can access our blog there, and also growwithcars.com, which is a fantastic place, free strategy guides on SEO and trade-ins and reputation and how to win dealer of the year and all that good stuff. A lot of the stuff that I talked about today is much more eloquently written out with pictures and animations and all that good stuff there. So what a plug.
Well, Jamie, we really we appreciate your time today. Definitely covered quite a bit of information. If anyone has any more questions for Jamie, we've got a thread over in the forums. And so we'll jump off here, but before the jump, and you're not going to answer this question until after we jump, but I want to go ahead and ask it.
Okay.
What do reviews and Bitcoin have in common? So you'll get you answer that after the jump, and if anyone else is interested, maybe we'll post it over in the forums.
Yep. And the after party. I know I'm a crypto nerd, so sorry, I had to put that.
Right,
no, it was great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me. Thanks again for all you do. This is a fantastic program and a great forum, and we're proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Jamie. Thanks, Jamie.
Till next week, everyone.
Till next week.